You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, everybody. This is a very informal hangout to discuss Oceangate. They just sadly discovered some of the remains. And in case you've been living under a rock, all my predictions, not all of them, but the main ones, which was that they weren't at the bottom of the ocean knocking, that knocking was nothing, came to be true. The other thing that I said in there, that I felt sorry for the son who was on board with his father, that he was only there to please his father. That turned out to be true, that he only showed up because it was Father's Day and he was trying to please his dad. So it turned out to be really just tragic. And that the third thing I said, predicted or said or thought about it when I was looking at the news stories, when all the news stories were saying that they were trapped at the bottom of the ocean and that there was knocking and that they were running out of oxygen, was that it probably imploded on the way down. And it turns out that the Navy heard that implosion on Monday, and they let that news story run, this idea that they were running out of oxygen for days, day after day. They just went on and kept embellishing on it. How are they going to survive? The oxygen is running out. How are we going to rescue them? And we really had no way to rescue them. So I wanted to just watch some stuff about, I think the issue now about Oceangate, some of the media that's come out since then, since we know, it's not quite such a mystery. It's not quite so exciting, right? Now that we know. But what people are saying is what I picked up on in the Oceangate advert, which was that people who were promoting it, like the NASA guy and the chef who worked for Oceangate, seemed extremely uncomfortable around the topic of safety. And that wasn't some kind of psychic prediction on my part, because I had already known that Stockton Rush was the CEO of the company, was already on record saying safety's a waste, you got to break the rules and all that stuff. But you can see in the advert for Oceangate, this Titanic voyage, that when it comes to the subject of safety, when they have to plug the safety, the chef and the NASA astronaut look both really uncomfortable. So one of the things that has come out is Titanic director James Cameron, who does these kind of dives in a much different kind of submission, knew about that the Navy had heard this blast and didn't do any interviews until we found out what happened to the Oceangate sub. And so I wanted to look first at his one of his interviews. I thought they were interesting. So let's see. So we can watch this together.
I wish I had been more vocal about that, but
wait, let's go back to that.
Oceangate shouldn't have been doing what it was doing. I think that's pretty clear. I wish I had been more vocal about that, but I think I was unaware that they weren't certified because I wasn't really studying it. I wasn't really interested. Stockton Rush asked me if I wanted to go out there and dive this season. I wasn't interested. This father and son on Father.
Isn't that interesting? Stockton Rush wanted James Cameron on board so he could take 1 million pictures, 1 million videos, and use that as a way to promote Oceangate. Because also, I saw another news story where they said that Stockton Rush was offering people really discounted fares and doing that kind of thing. Like, you have just a couple hours, there's just one last seat, right? like when you're trying to fill up a concert hall and nobody's buying it, and you say seats are limited, but really nobody was buying these $250,000 seats, and he was offering them for $150,000 or $125,000, and people were like, no thanks. So you know that if he got James Cameron to go on it, it would have been a huge boost to his company.
Mother's Day, paid $500,000 to go down in this thing. Holy crap. It's just tragic, and it's horrific, and it's unnecessary. And by the way, it's not lost on me as somebody who's studied the meaning of Titanic. It's greater meaning to us, historically and societally, that it's about warnings that were ignored. That ship's lying at the bottom of the ocean, not because of the nature of its steel or the nature of its compartments, but just because of bad seamanship.
Do you guys believe James Cameron when he says he didn't know that this Oceangate wasn't certified? I'm not so sure I believe him. I mean, wouldn't that make waves in that community? No pun intended, but if you're not certified and you have this form that you're getting people to sign, like where death is mentioned multiple times on the first page, a legal waiver that you're having people sign before they go down in it. I mean, wouldn't that kind of go around in that community? I mean, he says in another interview that it's a very small community.
Ship. The captain was warned. There were icebergs ahead. It was a moonless night, and he plowed ahead for whatever reason. I think there was some greed. There was some glory in it. He had to boot up his rear from J. Bruce Ismay to get into New York on time or early, so they'd have a headline, which I show in the film, And here we are again, and at the same place, Now there's one wreck lying next to the other wreck for the same damn reason. Search, search, search. 4 days of search. They're searching everywhere. They were running around with their hair on fire. The sub was right where it was. It was literally on the seafloor below its last known position, which is the first place you look in a search, is the last known position. You don't go running around all over the landscape with planes and trains.
But other people suggested that this story was used as a distraction from some other story. So what is the story? Because obviously the Navy heard it, and James Cameron knew enough to stay silent, I think, right, till after everything came out. So what were they using this for? I mean, were they so inept that they didn't know to look in the last place that it made communication? I'm just having a hard time buying this. I don't want to get conspiratorial, but why? I understand you want to protect the families, but to put them through that, to think that maybe your loved one is alive and down there and there's no way to rescue them, it's just so horrific. What a torture. What a horrible thing to have to go through.
And automobiles searching, right? It was right where it was when it imploded, and I knew that's where they were going to find it. So you search. First place you look is the last known position, and that's where it is. So there was ultimately never a search. And that ROV was only in the water for about 3 hours before they found it. So what does that mean? They went to the last known position, they looked on the sonar, they saw a clump that was never there before, they drove over to it, and there it was. Pretty much that simple, right? So, all of this has just been people running around, waving their arms with their hair on fire for 4 days straight. And I just feel terrible for what the families must have been going through during that time.
So all that time, other people, they said, they had planes, they had all sorts of things, yet they weren't going down. They weren't using the vehicle, the kind of sonar and things that we have. My understanding is it's some kind of non-manned vehicle, electric vehicle that can that can really reach down there. But they weren't doing that. They weren't like looking as far down as they could at the last known. Why not? This is such a weird story. I would love to know what was really going on, because someone said that they were offered help from some country that had the best resources in this department, and they said no. So what I just wonder why it was so delayed, if what James Cameron is saying is true.
And that then goes back to why the authorities chose to not say what they knew. Begs the question now, doesn't it?
Yeah, why do you think they didn't?
I do not want to speculate.
Jim,
Well, I can speculate all day long, but I am not going to say it out loud. Look, Monday morning when I first found out about the incident, got on a whole bunch of calls and emails. It's a small community. Within an hour and a half, I had the following information. They were on descent. They were at 3,500 feet. They lost comms and tracking. The last one being the critical one, because the
I'm just stuck on James Cameron not saying, he doesn't want to say. It's like he really knows something he's not supposed to disclose. No?
transponder that's used to track a sub during descent and on the bottom is a fully autonomous system. It's in its own pressure housing, and it has its own battery power. So for them to lose comms and tracking at the same time, sub was gone. There was no question in my mind. For days, I tried to run other scenarios that could account for it. I could come up with nothing. So the next thing I did was contacted a few more people and managed to track down, there are acoustic networks around. Some are research, some are intelligence.
Totally off subject. What is that jersey he's wearing? Does anybody know what sports team is that? I mean, I don't even know. Is that hockey? I don't watch hockey at all, or football, so I have no idea what that is. Let me know in the comments if you know what that is. I don't know. I'm not hating on it. I'm just wondering what it is.
We got confirmation within an hour that there had been a loud bang at the same time that that comms were lost. A loud bang on the hydrophones, loss of transducer or transponder, loss of comms. I knew what happened. Sub imploded. I sent emails to everybody I know. I said, we've lost some friends. The sub has imploded. It's on the bottom in pieces right now. I sent that out Monday morning. We never expected to see a scenario like.
Isn't that interesting? He knew immediately. And knowing nothing about this field, that's what I thought too. And yet every single expert that was on TV was like, yeah, that banging, that's a really good lead we got there. Yeah, they could definitely be on the top of the water or in the bottom of the ocean, just stuck on something, all alive. Like, yet he's sending out condolences and basically eulogizing these people on Monday. I'm just so mesmerized by how, I mean, it's not my first rodeo with how weird and weird the media is and agenda driven. I just don't understand what the agenda is here.
Like this. We may go into hazardous environments like hydrothermal vents, or even to a wreck like Titanic or Bismarck or some of the other wreck sites, which are dangerous from an entanglement standpoint or a structural collapse standpoint. But you never worry about the vehicle, the platform that you're in, and you certainly don't worry about implosion. There's never been an implosion of a vehicle with people in it. And
well, you can't say that now, James Cameron, but this was very unusual. This guy broke so many rules with the materials that he used. Stockton Rush, I'm talking about, the CEO of Oceangate. And he broke those rules in order to make it big. My understanding was this was like one of the biggest subs of this kind. that it was made to fit 5 people, and most of them fit 2 or 3 people at most. I mean, really, claustrophobics. If you have claustrophobia, it'd be your nightmare.
So I think I don't want to say it blindsided the community, because there was a lot of concern. And by the community, I mean people who operate subs and build subs for a living. There was a lot of concern about this outfit and this sub. A lot of concern, even to the extent that I wasn't involved in it because I was making Avatar 2 at the time, but a lot of them got together and wrote a letter to Oceangate and said, you have to certify. You cannot take people.
Wait, I just thought he said he didn't know it wasn't certified in the beginning of this. Am I the only one who heard that? Now he's saying he knew about this letter and everybody wrote this letter. Oh, a little bit of contradiction there. Unless he just found out about it. Wait, let's go back. Let's hear what he has to say about this letter again. Hold on. I just want to hear this again.
About this outfit and this sub. A lot of concern, even to the extent that I wasn't involved in it because I was making Avatar 2 at the time, but a lot of them got together and wrote a letter to Oceangate and said, you have to certify. You cannot take people down. It's irresponsible, and it could lead to catastrophe. Literally, the word catastrophe is in the letter. And I think that letter has been made public. All those signatories have come off. But, you know, I never believed in that technology of wound carbon fiber, you know, wound filament, cylindrical hull. I thought it was a horrible idea.
That's the material, the carbon fiber that is never used in these things. And I don't think it could have been certified with carbon fiber. So they would have had to make a whole new vehicle, and they should have. But it's obvious that this was not very well respected. They got that one guy who died with them, the French explorer, to sort of legitimize it. It's all the techniques that are used in innocence fraud. Get the experts to vouch for it. Get people respect to vouch for it. And they wanted celebrities too. They were ready to get James Cameron. I mean, James Cameron does both. He's in this field. He goes down in these things. He seems to know a lot about it, but he's also primarily a Hollywood guy, a movie director.
I wish I'd spoken up, you know, but I assumed somebody was smarter than me, you know, because I'd never experimented with that technology, but it just sounded bad on its face, because we make pressure hulls out of contiguous material, steel, titanium.
It's just so funny. Every time I look at James Cameron, I think about Titanic. So when Titanic was being made, I was working at Jersey Films, which was Danny DeVito's company. They did, they were coming off Pulp Fiction, all these, you know, mega hits, Get Shorty. And we had a deal with Universal. So we shared offices with Universal. So our offices were on one side of the floor and Universal's were on the other. And it was like very small offices on both, you know, like we're satellite offices because we're in New York, right? And we would get these reports and we had the coffee pot over at our over at our side of the floor. So the Universal guys would come over and they talk about Titanic, like just what a disaster it was while it was filming and how it was just a money pit and it was going to be the biggest failure anybody'd ever seen. It was just like, it was a joke, you know, like it was going to be, I don't know if Daylight, that film with Sylvester Stallone that Universal did, if that came out afterwards or before, but it was going to be something like that. Some like mega, it was just going so over budget. And you just hear these, like everybody was unhappy on that set.
Ceramic, acrylic. And so you can model it. You can do finite element analysis of it. And, you know, you understand the yield properties. You understand the number of cycles that it can take. But you can't do that with a composite material because it's two dissimilar materials, you know, sort of bonded together. And so we all knew that the danger was delamination and progressive failure over time with microscopic water ingress and fatigue.
See, they all knew, but nobody could stop it. It's very hard to stop something that's making people money, even something this small. I mean, of course, innocence fraud is always on my mind. That's what I'm thinking about watching this. It's very hard to stop something making people money. Look at Jeffrey Epstein and all that. That has other added factors, but still, Madoff, that took years to bring down. I mean, if you've ever listened to the whistleblower, the Madoff whistleblower, he was like handing them all the information they needed. It just went ignored year after year.
What they call cycling fatigue. And we knew that if the sub passed its pressure test, it wasn't going to fail on the first dive. It might fail on dive 7, or I don't know what they're at, but it's going to fail over time, which is insidious. You don't get that with steel or with titanium. But sometimes people get go fever.
Yeah, it was the second year of this. So he's probably about right. It's probably about their 7th or 8th, I would think. I don't know how many dives they made before this, but yeah, I think he's right on for the right on there.
And look, we celebrate innovation, right? But you shouldn't be using an experimental vehicle for paying passengers that aren't themselves deep ocean engineers. Look, there's a part of me that hoped I was wrong. I really hope.
Yeah, me too. All right, that's that. Let's just, yeah. What do you guys think of that? I just want to thank PD. Thank you so much for the $5.49 Canadian super sticker. I really appreciate it. So what do you guys think of that? I don't know. It just seems like James Cameron, when he wasn't giving any of those interviews, and I know everyone was pounding down his door asking for an interview, it's because he knew a lot. He knew a lot. And probably anyone in that field, they had a bad reputation, which is funny because the people who went down, said it had a great reputation. My friend told me about it. We had such a good dive, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, let's watch something else here. Let's see. This is also about the safety, but I just don't think those vouchers are going to cover any kind of legal liability. It's so negligent. It's so over the top that I don't think that those vouchers, no matter what they say, even though death is mentioned 3 times in the first thing, I don't think these people could rationally predict how risky it was, even with those waivers. I think it's going to be a massive, massive lawsuits. And if they haven't come out yet, I don't know. I haven't read anything about these lawsuits coming out yet, but I'm sure they're being worked on now. There's some civil attorneys working on suing whatever's left of Oceangate and whoever else they can sue. Okay, so this is Oceangate. They thought they could get away with it a bit longer. So this is LBC.
Have time for all of it, but some of it with Vanessa O'Brien. She's not just an explorer, she's an extreme explorer. I'm very happy to say that she's sitting in the studio right opposite me. She wrote a book, many books, but her most famous book was called To the Greatest Heights. It was published in 2021. Vanessa, good to see you on the program.
Good to see you.
Not only did you go to the greatest heights, you went to the top of Everest, you also went to the greatest depths by going to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, 30,000 feet deep, the most bottom bit of the bottom of the ocean. What makes someone want to do both?
So yes, so I'm the first woman to reach extremes on land, sea, and air. So land, of course, is Mount Everest.
Yeah.
Sea is bottom of the Challenger Deep, and space is passing the Kármán line
I forgot space.
Yes,
I'm
no,
sorry.
that's
yes.
okay.
Right, okay.
On New Shepard
Yeah.
NS-22. So it's, for me, what's important is the ability to give back. I like to do things for scientific purposes.
She likes to give back, and she likes to tell you that she likes to give back.
And because of climate change, there are reasons to go and to take samples and to learn more about the world in which we live. So that's what drives me, and that's why I'm willing to take that risk. When we look at the people that were on board Titan, I think we have 5 different individuals with different psychological mindsets. We have a CEO.
And expert.
Not for nothing, but why do people do that? Why do they say individuals when they could just say people? It's so obvious that they're individuals. Why don't they just say we have 5 people? I don't know. That's just my old cranky self coming out there, I guess. But that and very unique might be my two my 2 triggering language things. But that's interesting that she feels that her passion is climate change, and she feels like this kind of exploring will somehow prevent climate change. Is that what she means?
And expertise. That's right. We have a CEO trying to build a business. So his motivation is very different. He's trying to go out there and say, look, this is a legitimate company, a legitimate business. I'm even behind it so much so that I'm going to go in the submersible myself, right? Look, he's a passenger.
Right.
As we know, this was not certified. Of the 11 submersibles that could go greater than 4,000 meters, this was the only one not certified.
Yeah.
But do you think people who are paying $250,000 who aren't in this community know what that means to be not certified? I mean, it's just kind of odd, no? I mean, maybe if you're really familiar, if you're doing a lot of research, but I wonder how much research that these multimillionaire, billionaire guys, thrill-seeking guys did.
Okay, so it's a big warning sign.
Would you have gone on it yourself?
I absolutely would not have gone on it.
Because of the lack of certification?
Because of the lack of certification, and because it was made with 2 different materials. It was made with titanium and it was made with carbon fiber. Both of those materials will expand and contract at different rates. Where they meet and where they form that seam, water will go to that place and will take advantage of that, and that's where it will have that implosion.
Can you describe the degree of pressure that,
Every time I hear her say carbon fiber, I think back to when I must have been 7 or 8, and I watched like this guy in a sports car got into a massive accident in front of me, and he like got out and he was screaming like, it's pure fiberglass. It's pure fiberglass. So that's what I keep thinking, like it's pure carbon fiber and titanium. You can't make these subs out of here.
a vessel like that will encounter at 4,000 meters, or probably this happened maybe at 2,000 meters? What is the degree of pressure that bears down on a vessel?
Yep, at 3,800 meters, that's 5,600 pounds per square inch. So take a square inch, that's the size of a postage stamp.
Yeah.
5,600 pounds, I said that's about the weight of a Land Rover. So something as small as, say, the tip of my fingernail, 5,600 pounds, everywhere that size of that form of pressure. So imagine that seam of where these 2 different coefficients of materials hits that pressure point. It won't.
So on the whole vessel, it's like the Empire State Building, basically, on top of the whole thing. Yeah, whatever. I mean, it's an enormous amount of pressure.
Yeah, but it's going to go to the weakest point, and the weakest point is where that implosion will take place.
The way you describe it makes it seem really clear and obvious. Why wasn't it obvious to the owners of Oceangate? Why was it not obvious to quite a few other scientists who've gone down in that?
Right. It's so interesting. I really would love to know who warned Stockton Rush and what did they say? Because once it goes down successfully once or twice or 3 times, wouldn't you think you would get arrogant and think, well, it's going, they're just jealous. They're just jealous because I can fit 5 people and I'm making money. these old academic fuddy-duddies, like I can just see his thinking get really sort of shutting down around the issue of safety.
That submarine in that very same boat that is now, wreckage at the bottom of the ocean.
Well, they had made successful dives. So you can find people who had gone on those dives.
They were lucky.
And yeah, they were lucky. So here's the point is when you roll the dice, right? Are you a gambler? How
Mhm.
many times are you going to roll that dice where it doesn't work? So there were people who had done it.
Show of hands in the chat. Who's a gambler? I'm not. I'm not at all. And like next to space travel, this would be my nightmare going down to one of these things. You couldn't pay me $250,000 to go down in this or $1 million or whatever they're charging to go to the edge of space. No, thank you. My nightmare.
Successfully. The problem is how many times is it going to take until it pops,
Mm.
literally implodes. So I think that they thought that they could get away with it a little longer.
Mm.
They didn't know because it wasn't certified. They didn't pressure test it.
And why didn't they use the kind of submarine that you used to go down much, much deeper to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, which is, 11,000 meters deep, 3,000 meters deeper than Everest is high?
Well, that cost $40 million and took a long time to build, and it would take a longer time to certify.
Right.
So if you want to do it right.
Oh, so they cut corners. So they made like a really cheapy thing, it relatively compared to what it really costs to make one of these things. And this was a for-profit business. And also, I mean, we can watch some of the Stockton Rush's stuff. He's interesting to watch because his ego is so obviously connected with this Oceangate stuff. So he was just like, look, I'm just ballsier and more forward thinking than all of these people. Yeah, that's another thing that I said, that he modeled himself on these Bill Gates, Apple type CEOs. And that turned out to be true. I actually read something about that. Sort of like, I'm a risk taker. I'm breaking the mold.
You need to be in it for a longer period of time and have a longer game
So they
plan.
did this on the cheap, basically.
It
sounds
cheaper.
awful. Cheaper.
So and then the psychology of, why are these men going down to see a wreck that has beautiful pictures online by, professional photographers, but they're cramped side by side where they can't stretch their legs? What are they really going to see underwater where it's dark, where there's a porthole, and you can't really, you got to share a view of something
that was exactly my comment at the time. What could you see down there? Because there's only that one porthole in the front. So if you get stuck towards the back, what are you really going to see? And it's dark. And I understand that they have one light, but what really can you see? But she says, well, why would you want to go down there? Because there's no bragging rights to say, I went to James Cameron's 3D movie. I saw it in the theater of the Titanic, or I saw some great, that's not dinner party talk. This is impress your friends type adventurer stuff. And also there's no sort of ego, like I'm this brave guy who lives life to the fullest. Like, extremist. There's no sort of extremist experience in looking at those things online. But I agree with her. I'm happy looking at the footage online. I don't need to go down there myself. And it's a mass grave too. That hasn't been brought up yet, but it's also a mass grave. It's not a tourist attraction.
you're really not going to be able, you could see something so much better. Just
So they can say, been there, done that, I guess.
that's potentially the only reason. But what bragging right is that? That's
And apparently the
terrible.
son of the British CEO who was on board
Mhm.
didn't want to go at first, but he
I
did
saw-
it.
yeah.
I don't know if that's true,
I-
but
no,
he,
I
wants,
s- I
he
saw
wants to please his father because it was Father's Day.
Yeah, I saw that. And actually, that's a good lesson for all relations, really, whatever the relation is between two people. But let's take father and son. let's be kind to each other. Let's think about, the pressures that we put on each other maybe unnecessarily. I think back to my own father, and, I had to go ice fishing to spend time with my father. No one likes ice fishing.
Is that true?
So, yes, it's true. So,
Your father liked ice fishing?
of course he did. But if, think about what our children like and think about things that we can do with them that they like. And if we can't find common ground, then throw both options out and pick something new.
So what was it?
That's an interesting point. I don't know. It just seems like these relationships, these children who are born decades young, that are decades younger than me, have a totally different relationship with their parents and both of their parents, not just their father, but I just watch my friends parent their kids. Like, what do you want for dinner? And they have so much. I mean, we just ate. We ate what my mother cooked, and if you didn't eat it, you went hungry. That was it. They just have so much input, and their feelings are so considered. I come from like the tough love, no spoiled kids, kind of really tough way of upbringing, and I don't know. I'm thankful for it.
It like going down to see the Mariana Trench? I can't imagine, 100 meters below the surface of the sea. I've only ever gone down, I think 2 or 3 meters, and I thought that was terrifying. What's it like?
Yeah. So this is, to go down to that area, this is 200 miles southwest of Guam. This is the Federated States of Micronesia. This was a dive to, I was able to take samples for the Natural History Museum.
So whoever asked if it was criminal, it would be very hard to bring criminal charges because it's in the middle of international waters. That's my understanding. But civilly, I would think they would be able to sue just in the sheer negligence of how they made this thing. Because there was a lawsuit, and that lawsuit, I believe, from someone who worked there who was complaining about the safety. It was a whistleblower. Couple years back, 2 years back, I think. That's my memory of it. Maybe it was further back, but I believe that lawsuit will be used in any future lawsuit. Whatever the testimony or the deposition that Stockton Rush, I would think, probably gave for that lawsuit will be used in any current lawsuits.
This is 4 hours one way to the bottom. It was in partnership with NOAA to survey the bottom. So we went 3 hours across and came up a little bit earlier because of some issues with battery. But it was almost like what I imagined the surface of the moon to look like, because there's some sediment that's a little bit gray and brown. It's very, very quiet, very, very dark. There's 8 tons of pressure, 16,000 pounds per square inch,
Wow.
back to our square inch. And
this
just
is a really
so
dumb question.
silent.
Any deep sea fish down there, or nothing at all?
There are little tiny bristle worms called polychaetes. They have little tiny wings, but you can't have a spine with that much pressure, and you don't need eyes because it's dark. So it's the hadal zone. It's the very deepest part where there's really no predators.
Why aren't these deep? So this is another dumb question, but I'm asking like I'm a 10-year-old. Why aren't these deep sea fish, those scarily pale fish with no eyes, why aren't they just squashed by all the pressure?
Well, your tiny little worms, like sea cucumbers and stuff like that sits on the bottom. They can survive. They're just
They can. They're sea cucumbers.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to
survive.
Someone's got to survive. Vanessa O'Brien, thank you very much for coming in. The book is called To the Greatest Heights.
Thank you.
Thanks
Matt.
for your insights. It's
Cheers.
great to have you on the program.
Yeah, that was an interesting interview. Huh. Let's see what else I have on the that I wanted to kind of look through. I really kind of want to look through again, if I can find it, if they haven't taken it down. I just want to watch Oceangate's advertisement for itself. Let's see if I can find that. I didn't think I'd want to watch it again, but apparently I do. Just knowing what we know, it would be kind of interesting to see how they were selling it. Now that we know they had such a bad reputation. Oh, let's see. Maybe it's experience the deep ocean. Is this what we watch? This may be different. No, here, okay. There's 2 on here. Maybe let's watch the one that we haven't watched before first, before we go to the one that's just about the Titanic. So let's see.
So yesterday we went down in Cyclops.
It was so cool to be in the sub as the water was bubbling up around it. It was pretty tense to be in a little tube with 5 people about to go hundreds of feet under the water.
Trigger warning for everybody who's claustrophobic. Kat, thank you so much for the $10 super sticker. Appreciate it. But didn't that just get like that just made my heart go, I'm not claustrophobic even though I'm just this thing, it just really scares me. This idea of being at the bottom of the ocean with no way to rescue you. Though it didn't sound like such a terror, it's a terrible tragedy.
And as soon as that water started like gurgling up around us, I like totally chilled out. And it was really peaceful. Just watching the light change was very cool.
It took a lot of skill navigating this sub to get a nice visual because a lot of current, a lot of movement.
180.
See, so it looks amazing. All these shots make it look amazing, right? But then you look at what they're looking at in there, and it's just very dark and just looks like a bunch of geeks on their computer. But gosh, I would not want to be in that thing. Oh, law. Oh, no, thank you.
170. 160.
I feel so lucky I got to do one dive while the Cyclops was here. We very easily could fit, all 3 or 4 of us were in the front most of the time.
I can sit there in the dome and watch fish do their thing in the environment that they live in. I can see them at the Vancouver Aquarium, but they're doing totally different things. And so the advantage here.
These fish are singing when no one's looking. They're doing entire dance routines. It's amazing. That's what you got to pay. What are these fish doing that they're not doing in an aquarium? Please explain. Please explain how the fish move differently. Are they preying on other fish? Is that what he's saying? Is that what he means? I have no idea what that. Let's hear that again and just try to find out what he's talking about. These fish are doing different things. These fish are not professional stage actor fish that you see in the aquarium.
In the environment that they live in. I can see them at the Vancouver Aquarium, but they're doing totally different things. And so the advantage here is to be able to spend hours and hours on the bottom watching animals do their thing in an incredibly inhospitable environment.
We were dry and
Okay, so he's saying that he's watching the circle of life, and this is what I'm getting from it, that different sea creatures are perhaps preying on each other, and you can watch for hours and see how the whole ecosystem relates to one another. All right. But is that worth the price of I don't know if this was $250,000, and I don't know if they went as far down as the Titanic. Did anyone else hear? Did anyone hear how far they went down? Because this is deep ocean, but how deep is it? So is this these are the dives they did. No, it was the second year for the Titanic dives, right? So this says 3 years ago. So maybe these are the first dives that this Oceangate thing sub made.
Warm and in our own clothes. But the other very cool thing was we've all been scuba diving a lot together. So we're very accustomed to not being able to talk verbally with each other. But in the sub, you can just talk to each other. And
we're not able to talk verbally with each other. So does she mean communicate verbally? So like if you're diving, you can make motions, but you can't hear each other. But in the sub, you can actually hear each other and talk. Okay, got it. Took me a little while to figure out what she was saying.
have a normal conversation while you're looking at all this cool stuff. I mean, not only is that fun, but it has really cool science applications for being able to talk things out while you're in the field.
Oh, it's an octopus. Octopus. Another one?
Oh my god!
Six skill.
Top side. We have a 6 skill at the viewport.
Is that incredible?
That is absolutely amazing.
God, what a great view of him.
That might be one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
That was cool, right? So let's see, let's go back and see what's going on. Because I think I just saw their ad. Wait, hold on. Let me find it. Okay. Yeah, I found their advertisement for their Titanic, and this was just released 2 months ago. It's so sad, really. Hold on 1 second. Let me share it with you guys. Okay. Here we go.
Offers you the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be a specially trained crew member safely diving to the Titanic wreckage site. Get ready for what Jules Verne could only imagine, a 12,500-foot journey to the bottom of the sea. It's the Oceangate Titanic experience. Earning raves from those who've taken our unforgettable dives.
There's no other trip like this. Fewer people have been to Titanic than have been to space.
It's tougher to go to the bottom of the ocean than it is to the far side of the moon. So we saw things that maybe human eyes have never seen before.
Wow.
What were those things that human eyes had never seen before? Titanic had been explored before. I'm curious what those are. He doesn't say. But watch him when he starts talking about safety. It gets interesting. And was that the same woman from the other video, or no? Was that a different woman?
This is not a thrill ride for tourists. It's much more. It is an 8-day, one-of-a-kind experience. You will be trained as a mission specialist and record valuable findings.
A citizen scientist is also involved in the science.
So they said these guys who were paying $250,000, they're not thrill seekers. They're citizen scientists. They're ocean explorers. They're doing important work. So they gave you an exalted title, which I said last time, which is just what cults do.
Doing jobs that are essential to the scientific research, not just busy work. We are looking at the process of degradation at the site. We are trying to make a really good map of the site and its current state.
This is not tourism. You're contributing.
It's not a ride at Disney. You know, there's a lot of real risk.
What did they contribute scientifically? I'd like to know. Curious. If they could go so far down, and if they did all these trips, what did they contribute scientifically? Be so curious to know.
involved, and there's a lot of challenges.
We partnered with aerospace experts at the University of Washington, NASA, and Boeing on the design of our hull.
Every time you
See, that's just like what these innocence campaigns do. We have this expert, he's, Michael Baden, we have Jim Clemente, ex-FBI people, all say, lawyers looked at this case and said, this is the worst injustice I've seen in 50 years. Basically, just an appeal to authority to make you feel like, well, I'm not a NASA astronaut. I don't know about this stuff, but if a NASA astronaut says it's okay, it's got to be okay. Same thing they do with celebrities. Well, the celebrity wouldn't risk their good reputation, like Johnny Depp on the West Memphis 3.
take to the sea, there's so many things that have to go right. All the electrical systems and navigation systems that have to check out. This is a very complex vehicle.
Titan topside, you are out at 130 meters. We are in position for the dive.
It's very well engineered and very safe, but
What are those guys doing in those chairs? I never figured that out. You're in position for a dive. What are they doing? Let's go look again. 1 second. What is this area about? Thank you, Kat. Does anyone know what this area is about? The Star Trek posture in the chairs?
We are in position for the dive.
it's very well engineered and very safe, and the team is very...
Did you see that hesitation, guys? It's very safe, but, and then he goes on. Wait, we got to go back and just watch that one more time. 1 second.
And the team is very focused on safety first.
The communication is really key, I think, knowing that they never lost communication.
Not 1 second of me experiencing
Wait, did they say that woman was an equestrian? Now I'm just questioning everything. Let's just go back and hear the safety thing again one more time. And why would an equestrian be good for your company? Are they just saying the best of every field? People at the top of every field?
It's very well engineered and very safe, and the team is very focused on safety first.
The communication is really key, I think, knowing that they never lost communication.
Not 1 second of me experiencing anything from Oceangate have I ever felt unsafe.
As I pointed out on the bridge earlier, your safety plans all around the vessel.
All mission specialists get to dive down to the Titanic, but the full experience entails much more. It begins with...
I'm giving myself my own title. Mission specialist, live streaming specialist. I don't know what mission specialist, and people fell for it. Amazing.
Boarding day in picturesque St. John's, Newfoundland. Mission specialists meet each other in the Oceangate team.
Everybody here instantly became family. And that's something that you take away for life.
Prep starts before dawn with initial safety checks, reviewing assignments, and gearing up. Then comes the pre-launch briefing, followed by boarding the Titan. Inside the surface vessel is Command Central. There, Oceangate operatives and specialists not diving that day are guided by the mission director before countdown to launch.
Roger, platform ready to dive.
Mission directors go for platform launch.
This was actually my very first time. That was the first time that I'd been inside a sub, and it was really kind of a wonderful experience.
And you are in the deep, but you don't feel it.
So it's your big day.
It is my big day.
How are you feeling?
Very excited.
To softly land like that with just...
Wait, did you guys see that? That guy's a risk analysis? So what was he there? He went on this Titanic expedition, the risk analysis. He signed those waivers, and he does that for a living? Is this risk analysis in stocks, or is this sort of like life insurance or something else? I don't know. What a weird collection of people.
Just a little puff of debris was movie-like. It was sort of dramatic in front of me playing out, and it was breathtaking. So it's very emotional.
For mission specialists not aboard the Titan sub, there's a full calendar of things to do.
This looks fun.
Lectures, screenings, tours of the ship's vast resources, including the engine rooms and recovery apparatus. Maybe best of all are the one-on-ones with experts like Commander Paul-Henri Nargelet, leader of 30 dives to the Titanic wreck site.
Yeah, that was really sad. He was on that. Narget was on the, and so was Stockton Rush. It's just so sad. These people are dead because of this negligence. Awful.
He and other world-class experts will be on all our missions to give you an unrivaled, up-close and personal Oceangate Titanic experience.
The sub for me, it's very well done because it's simple. Generally, there are a lot of equipment and a lot of switch. And on this one, you don't have because you work with a screen and with a keyboard, and it's very easy to do that. You are not only a passenger seat and waiting that the time is running and just looking outside. You can do something inside. You can be really a member of the team, and that's great.
Even after a successful dive, there is much to be done. A key element is the debrief session led by the mission director and subsea pilot. Simultaneously, the Oceangate tech team does an extensive safety check for the next dive. Excitement, thrills, and adventure on the high seas.
I just loved every minute of it.
It has exceeded anything I thought it could ever be.
Titanic is the ultimate dream.
I mean, this is definitely probably one of the most unique, interesting things.
Oh, there's my trigger. There's my trigger wording. Yeah, when he says it's really simple, it's just like, I don't know, what would it be like? Like those old cars have steering wheels, but I guess they are actually phasing that out with these self-driving cars. Yeah, I don't know about that. This just has like a game controller and a screen, so it's like really easy to just go back down and come back up. But they needed Narget to really legitimize this thing, legitimize this operation.
Things I've ever done, even going to, I've been to Everest, but this is more unique.
This was a dream come true. But as I look back, this will no doubt be the best experience of my entire life.
Come join us on our next expedition. Don't miss the opportunity to be part of history. The Oceangate Titanic experience. There's truly nothing else like it.
Oh, incredible shot. They say that won't last long, that it won't look like the Titanic for very much longer, that it's really dilapidated and falling apart. That sort of where you see the deck and the railing, which is so iconic with the Titanic, that's going to be no longer, that it's really falling apart. It's so sad. I mean, I don't know about going down there with all these people have died. All right, I think I have, let me see what I have on the deck for you guys. Oh, okay. This is one of the people who tried to warn about Oceangate. So we can watch this together. It's a little long. Wait. That's not the one I wanted. Hold on one sec. Okay.
We begin with an urgent search and rescue operation that is currently underway in the Atlantic Ocean. Right now, U.S. Coast Guard officials are racing to find a submersible operated by a company that runs tours of the Titanic wreckage. Officials say that this was reported overdue on Sunday and is said to have only 96 hours of survival time. We are told several government agencies and deep sea companies are working on reestablishing contact with this submersible.
At the same time, some believe this situation was avoidable. Joining us now is Carl Stanley, another friend of Stockton and a deep sea sub owner. Carl, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kelly.
So we've been in communication with you for days, but you didn't want to speak out publicly until you had a better idea of what happened.
We mentioned Carl Stanley and his 2019 email warning to Stockton Rush at the top of the program. I spoke to Mr. Stanley just before air. Carl, if you can, describe for us what it was like when you were on Titan and the noises.
Can you imagine if you had been telling Stockton Rush and warning and worrying about this, and then this tragic accident happened, how awful that would have been? I mean, talk about no pleasure in saying, I told you so.
Is that you heard when you went down on it?
He was making promises he couldn't keep. He had no business bringing that thing out into the middle of the North Atlantic. The search was a sham. I mean, it sounds like he spent more money suing his engineers to shut up than he did actually paying engineers to do testing. I remember a heated verbal exchange that he wasn't ready to do that. After the book that foretold a shipwreck, to me is
Named Titanic.
too much of a coincidence. And so I think he felt that he needed to leave a mark on the world in his Avatar movie, and then could write off the whole thing as an expense for making his movie. Yeah, he thought he knew better than everybody else.
Carl, if you can, describe for us what it was like when you were on Titan and the noises that you heard when you went.
Wait, this guy wanted to make a movie, or is he talking about James Cameron? And Kat said something really interesting in the chat about Narget. Hold on. Oh, I'm behind. This is really interesting. I read that Narget talked about death a lot, and his wife had died, and after that he was severely depressed and always spoke about being with his wife. So maybe that's why he was, wow, that's dark. So maybe he knew the way that this was going to end. That's interesting. But does anybody get what that movie thing was about? Want to hear it one more time? Or no? Yes? No? All right. I'm going to move forward.
Down on it.
What's going on, guys? I'm back here in Honduras in Rotong Island to get on a submarine. A couple of weeks ago.
All right, let's go back and try to figure out what that guy is talking about, because it came so fast. I didn't know. I like Amanda Knox. He was stripped of his context.
More money suing his engineers to shut up than he did actually paying engineers to do testing.
So that's Stockton Rush he's talking about. He had lawsuits with his engineers. Okay.
Remember a heated verbal exchange that he wasn't ready to do that.
After the book
that foretold a shipwreck, to me is
named Titanic.
Too much of a coincidence. And so I think he felt that he needed to leave a mark on the world in his Avatar movie, and then could write off the whole thing as an expense for making his movie. Yeah, he thought he knew better than everybody else.
Carl, if you can, describe for us what it was like when you were on Titan and the noises.
I'm still not sure. It sounds like he's talking about James Cameron, that he could write off Avatar. That was some sort of like write-off for Avatar, which was Did that make money or not? I know it had terrible reviews, but I can't remember if it made any money or not.
Is that you heard when you went down on it?
What's going on, guys? I'm back here in Honduras in Rotong Island to get on a submarine. A couple of weeks ago, I came here and interviewed Captain Carl Stanley about his infatuation with building submersibles. That's the one right here, his latest one. And he gave us so much good information. He started building submersibles when he was 14 years old. He read a book when he was 9. Please watch that video. It's in the description. It's very descriptive about his passion. But anyways, he's become a super expert in submersibles. And I decided I would come see him based off of what has happened. And to my surprise, this guy has been on that other submersible that unfortunately had something bad happen to it. Anyways, give me a second. Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
That just happened.
The boat just hit this?
Talking to Carl. I was like, what the
All right, but this is like a boat / submarine, right? It's
a boat with a glass bottom.
All right. So here we are with the captain, Captain Carl Stanley. First off, how are you?
It's been a heck of a busy week, and on top of all that, just had a boat smash into my dock, so a little frazzled, but
I'm hearing stories of helicopters.
yeah. Well, the relaxing part was a week ago, and I was dropped off by helicopter in park.
This guy seems a little on edge, no? But I guess if you've been warning people and no one listens to you and then it happens, maybe that put him on edge, or is he just naturally on edge and a little cranky like this usually?
The jungle on the mainland where nobody had been up until about 8 years ago, and I have a base camp there. And that was
okay. That was the good part.
Life was simple like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot has happened since then.
Yeah, the day we got out was the day that the submarine went missing.
You have had time on that sub?
Yeah, I did deep dive number 2, Bahamas to the same depth as the Titanic.
When you say number 2,
he did the first one solo, and then he got willing guinea pigs for the second dive, and that was me, sonar technician, and high up person in the company who he had known since childhood. With the company shortly thereafter.
So this guy has been put on edge. He knew these people, and it's so that's what I'm and yeah, I understand his frustration now, getting a little bit more of the backstory.
Okay. Why you? I just have to ask, why did he choose to call you?
Well, I reached out to him. I mean, I've known him for over 10 years.
Right.
And he, one of the other subs that his company runs is made from a component that came from the same sub that a component of my submarine.
All right, Kat's going to explain it all to you. She may be this smarter than, absolutely smarter than I am in this. Stockton wanted to make, thank you for explaining it, wanted to make a movie like James Cameron, so then all the capital he put in this could be written off as a business expense. Got it. Okay, that makes sense now. Thank you. I'm so confused. I don't keep up with James Cameron.
Comes from. So we have kind of sister submarines like that. So that was another connection we had. But I'm one of the most experienced operators of deep sea submersibles in the world, but I'm also the only other operator taking the general public into the deep ocean that isn't certified. And so I think that he valued my advice and input into what he was doing. But I mean, I volunteered. When I heard what he was doing, I told him right off, like, you know, that was my once in a lifetime opportunity to go that deep in a sub, and I wanted to experience that. And he told us before the dive to expect loud noises that he had heard on his first dive, and we did. He described them as fireworks. I would say small caliber gunshots, same difference.
Get out of here.
That's how, I mean, the forces at those depths, according to the company's own website, the sub at Titanic depth was experiencing 127 million pounds of cumulative pressure on the hull. So, anything that's being broken with that much force applied is going to make some noise, even if the brake isn't absolutely.
Okay, so you get on the ship, dive 2. It's off the coast of.
So they were hearing all these loud noises. Interesting. This guy's got to be Canadian, no? Doesn't he sound Canadian?
Bahamas.
Marsh Harbor.
And how deep do you go?
Roughly 12,500 feet.
And you hear the noise. And are you calm?
It was, it started, I don't remember the exact depth. I've forwarded the emails that I've had back and forth with him to different news agencies, including the New York Times, just had a front page piece on that. By reviewing my emails, it made noise for most of the trip. Obviously, the most towards the end of, or when we were the deepest. And the more troubling aspect was it even made noise.
So now I'm imagining this thing like an MRI at the bottom of the ocean. Just making like these really, so it's supposed to be like all peaceful and picturesque down there, but in reality, it's all dark and cramped, and you're hearing loud banging noises, and the pressure is really intense. Wow.
All the way up to 300 feet from the surface on the way
out of here.
up, which means there was stored energy in there, which was releasing. The hull was getting mashed up. So, and that was only on the second dive.
So you take the trip. You send them an email. Can you
send them a bunch of emails?
A bunch.
Pages of emails.
Why did you feel like you needed to tell him this? And what did you tell him?
I told him that he didn't have enough. I told him that the hull was breaking up, that even if he was able to, I told him he didn't have a marketable product. I remember that was one.
That's interesting. And we know now that he was really searching for people and offering them discounted rates and having a problem with this business, getting this business going. And so if these emails, I would think would show up as evidence in any kind of civil suit. Like they had warning, they were forewarned. I would think that any plaintiff, civil attorney would be very interested in those emails.
Sticking point, like he wanted to continue with diving,
right?
And just monitoring the sounds and tell his customers what to expect, and he thought that he was going to be able to be fine. And the way the sounds were so loud and how much people were spending to be there.
So guys, you're just going to hear some sounds that sound like some gunshots on the way down, and while you're down there, it's going to sound like maybe you're in a small gunfight, but nothing to worry about, guys. Nothing to worry about. So he thought he could finesse it. Wild. Oh, it is really just so sad, though. It's so tragic and sad, but this guy was so incredibly negligent, and knowing this and bringing people down there. It's crazy, 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 crazy.
I made it very clear to him I didn't think that he had a marketable product, because people would not be willing to spend that much money and hear those kinds of sounds. I also tried to give him a comparison to how much experience people have to have in order to do pilot's license or scuba diving or skydiving, in terms of hours and certain levels of experience that have to be crossed before you have certain next benchmarks that you're allowed to do. Like, for example, with skydiving, to get your B license, you have to have done 50 jumps before you're allowed to dive at night or anywhere near water. So, and also I think it's they restrict what kind of wind speeds you're allowed to jump in.
Right.
So, and then I also compared it to him. I went back through my dive logs for this submarine and my first submarine and gave him the exact points where I took a passenger to half of my operating depth. When I took a paying passenger at all for the first time. When I took a passenger to 1,500 feet. The first time I took a paying passenger to 2,000 feet, which is the deepest trip I offer right now, I was well over.
Would you guys go down in this guy's boat? I don't think I would. I mean, I wouldn't go down in any of them, so I'm not really like the prime candidate for this. Not the person to ask, but I don't know. I mean, such a small field and such a relatively new field. I don't think so. I don't know. He certainly was on to Stockton Rush, that's for sure.
100 dives of experience in this sub before I did that. We're talking like a year and a half of just nonstop diving and learning and dialing my program in. He quite literally had never done 2 consecutive dives without having a major system failure. He had no business bringing that thing out into the middle of the North Atlantic. And I mean, I explained it to him.
Does this feel like a little bit of the pot calling the kettle? Like, I'm not certified. He's not he wasn't certified, but he was really dangerous. So I haven't heard what you're doing. Are you not certified because it takes so much money to be certified? What's the difference between your sub and Oceangate? That's the question that I would want to ask, and I'd want to know the answer to.
From every angle I could think of doing it. I don't think it was my place to try to, physically interfere with him or anything. And at the end of the day, the people signed waivers. I don't think he was totally honest with them exactly how much issues the submarine had, and that information was not really coagulated by all his former customers and whatnot, that they would have had access to that information.
Okay. What year was this?
2019.
Okay, a few years back, and we had 2020 when everything was closed, and then now we're in 2023, and so fairly, it's been fresh in terms of him working on the submersible.
This would have been their 3rd season diving the Titanic.
Wow.
Yeah.
So still fresh. Wow, man. What's your whole thoughts on everything now that it's all done and
Well, I think we need to, this investigation is going to, every day we're learning more information.
Right.
And the more complete of a picture that we get in the last week, I've learned a lot more what kind of financial pressure he was under. The fact that he was giving away seats to YouTubers.
Mr. Beast,
he offered and he turned them down.
That was recently. That Mr. Beast could have been on that boat.
And there was next couple with YouTube channels that.
Kate and Nate, was it Kate and Nate?
I don't know, but they were out there and they got in the sub, but I guess something malfunctioned and they didn't get to go all the way down.
He wasn't offering me a trip down there. I would have said no too. Good for Mr. Beast. Yeah, so he was looking to. Yeah, that's what I heard, that he was offering discount rates and saying like, act now, kind of pushing people to make up their mind really quickly.
Obviously, there was not that much demand of people willing to spend $250,000 to see the Titanic if he was trying to give away trips, flying to try to woo clients and offering them discounts. He needed money. That much is obvious at this point.
Okay. In your experience, can you describe?
And that advert was made 2 months ago. So maybe that advert was made as a way to bring in more people too. And I don't know if anybody saw the tweets. I think they're deleted now, but from Oceangate while this was going on, the tone of them was really off, really odd. Like, we're all looking for, like, really, I don't know if it's just denial or putting the best face on it. They thought they'd put sort of an upbeat face on this tragedy, but even I knew it was like way off. Just the tone was just way off in those tweets.
His personality, or what you think he was going through?
He was very driven, and I think another part. I'm no psychologist, but to do a little junior napkin analysis here, he was from a very prominent family that two relatives had signed the Declaration of Independence. He was part of this sort of secret society, I want to say Bilderberg group, but they had meetings in the woods in California where ex-presidents were members. There was a 30-year waiting list. You needed big money and big connections to, Reagan and Bush were Henry Kissinger was a member of this. And they still somehow have gotten away with only accepting men, no women allowed, and no press allowed. And so he's rubbing elbows with these big names, wealthy people, but I don't think he had that much money. Where he went to school at Princeton, one of the buildings was named after one of his relatives. But I don't think that he had if he was that wealthy, he wouldn't have taken on investors. He could have built this whole thing himself.
Well, rich people can be very cheaper than the cheapest, but he could have been from sort of a ne'er-do-well from a super wealthy family. That's interesting. He went to Princeton. You know what his attitude reminds me of? Like the Kennedys, like skiing down, just the recklessness of it. The ego and the recklessness reminds me a little bit of the Kennedy family that Stockton Rush had or seemed to have. My view of it, I didn't know him.
He had even more, his Wikipedia page is half about just all who his relatives were. And so I think he felt that he needed to leave a mark on the world, and he was driven by ego, and he was in a tight spot financially, probably also exacerbated by the pandemic.
When you say that, do you mean that everything that happened might have been in a plan?
Yeah. How do you go down to the bottom of the ocean one of these during the height of the pandemic? What do you require? I don't even know. You require masks and I don't know, vaccinations or something. I don't know. I wouldn't even know. But boy, yeah, that would definitely, this business would not prosper during something like that.
Or
I don't want to go on the record as saying
okay,
that.
I won't. Okay. Do you feel like the search was a witch hunt, or it was necessary?
The search was a sham. The way that the boat communicates with the sub is through sound waves. And while 13,000 feet underwater sounds like a great distance, whales can talk to each other 1,000 miles away. And submarines can hear things 1,000 miles away. I can hear boats passing when I'm 2,000 feet underwater. I hear the propellers of the boats going. I've heard it raining when I'm 1,000 feet underwater. That's just with my ear, not with something in the water listening to them. So, you want me to shut them up?
Yeah.
Hey!
They're like playing with each other, biting each other's face. They do that all the time. They're good friends.
Yeah,
you can tell.
they fall asleep with their noses.
Cute dogs. Very cute dogs. Aw. I thought that was adding something to have the dogs in the background, but all right. So he's about to tell us what James Cameron wouldn't tell us about the search. And he's taking a long time to get to the point, but I'm interested to hear what he has to say. Hopefully he'll spill why he thinks that this was a sham search.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, the black one is relatively new, and the other one brought him home, and just
that was
they're
it.
in love. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my point with that is that when they were listening, they heard that. There's no way they didn't hear that. That was 127 million pounds of kinetic energy being released at the speed of sound.
We're talking about 7,000. How deep they were?
Around 12,000 feet.
Okay.
But that's really not that, They might have even felt a shockwave on the boat. There's no missing something. I don't even know what.
So he's saying Oceangate knew about this. The Navy knew about it Monday, when it happened. And they just, why wouldn't they call off all those resources that were used? What's the benefit of letting a search like this go on?
But 127 million pounds of force going off. I saw one figure of how many tons of TNT it was. It's a lot, like enough to level half this end of the island. It was not, but I think they were all in a state of shock. And I think the number 2 in the company was Stockton's now widow, and I don't think she had herself in the right frame of mind to declare herself a widow. And I don't think anybody else on that boat.
Maybe no one had the heart to tell her.
Heart, balls, gumption, courage, however you want to phrase it. But, then they let this thing turn into a big search and rescue, and Hope is alive. But they knew. Also, I mean, the mere fact that this was...
Wait, but okay, so I get that the family members, of course, are going to be in denial and grief-stricken, and friends too, and obviously the Oceangate staff, but no one had a good head on their shoulders to say, we're wasting a lot of resources here. We're delaying the inevitable. And we're just causing more pain and suffering to the family members of this crew. I don't get it. I still don't get it.
The first time in the history of humanity that a submersible had imploded. That's got to add to your state of shock.
Well, we talked about connections between that, right? About the Titan and it being the first of many things, shipwrecks.
It was the first submersible to implode in the history of humanity. And I'm sure it will probably remain the deepest implosion for a very long time, possibly ever.
Right. The connections between its name.
I didn't realize until recently, but the name Titan, besides just sounding like the Titanic, there was a book written more than 20 years before the Titanic sank called Titan, and it was a totally fictitious novel well before the Titanic existed. That was a boat almost the same length as the Titanic, which sank on its maiden voyage due to captain's folly by hitting an iceberg in the North Atlantic. And after that actually happened to the boat named Titanic, everybody came back and accused this guy of being some sort of prophet. And he's like, I just wrote a book. I don't understand how this happened. And to choose to name your submarine,
because it's a story that's as old as time. It's ego and being ego driven and money driven and not listening to the warning signs. I mean, that's human. That's interesting. Obviously, a writer is going to pick up on that human quality that a lot of these enterprising men have, which is they want to break boundaries. And when you do that, horrible things like this can happen. Meaning I'm going to be the first one to have my sub made of carbon fiber and titanium. I don't need to make it of steel. That's the old way of thinking. This is the new way of thinking.
After the
book that foretold a shipwreck to me is
named Titanic, and then you go into the water.
It's too much of a coincidence.
Looking to see the Titanic.
Too much of a coincidence.
Another coincidence is the New York Times actually did a piece on the captain's wife. She is actually a descendant of passengers who were actually on the Titanic. According to the article, her family was very prominent on the Titanic. So much that James Cameron included them in the actual movie.
How could they have prevented this, if, in your opinion?
More testing. Listen to everybody that was telling them they were up.
Okay. What about
I don't even know that he did 20%. So it's industry standard.
Right.
Test your vessel 20% deeper than what you plan to go.
Right.
I've done.
Well, how do you, I mean, that's the deepest I guess there are deeper areas of the ocean than the Titanic. So you go out there and you test it. Interesting. This guy is like extremely interesting. And thank God we finally found someone who's candid. Hey, Manny, thank you very much for the 99-cent super sticker. Appreciate it. I could listen to this guy all day. I don't know. I think he's fascinating. But I won't. This is very long. Maybe I don't know. Maybe 10 more minutes of this. And I don't know. Let's see where he goes with this.
On that, that's what they do with all classified subs in pressure chambers.
Right.
I see no evidence that he even ever did that.
The material he was using, that was part of the reason why a lot of people are talking.
If he had made it out of something other than carbon fiber, he would probably still be alive. Carbon fiber does have the best strength to weight ratio. However, we need to do more. A lot more research has to be done. I'm also very distressed to see that the videos I've now seen of the hull being made, they show it being laid up wet, which the stronger way to do that, and the way that Boeing is doing it for the airplanes, is with what they call pre-preg, where instead of having the wet resin put onto the cloth, it's already part of it, and you don't mix part A and part B. You cure it by putting it in an autoclave under pressure, which is a superior way to cure any kind of composite material for a couple reasons. One being, when it's done under pressure, it highly reduces the chances of little air bubbles forming in there, which are your weak points. And B, when you're making something very thick out of composite, which this was a very thick composite, if you're doing wet layup, it's inconsistent in the cure rate, because in the middle it's building up heat, because all epoxy resins are exothermic cures when they cure, putting off heat. And that's a variable that would be nice to eliminate, which they do with pre-preg. But pre-preg is more expensive, and even though he told people he was using that, based off the videos I've seen, it appears he lied.
Well, just based off of the videos.
The videos from their own company.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wow. He's basically doing discovery for any kind of civil attorney that wants to take up this lawsuit. Boy, you can't do that. You can't invite the press or even, announce that, we use this and that, and you don't.
You mentioned certifications, and I think that's for a lot of people. They want to understand what is the process of getting certified, and could you speak on that?
So certification for a submarine, the two major companies in the world that do that, one is the American Bureau of Shipping. They mostly deal with the Western Hemisphere and around Europe and that part of the world. Mostly they deal with Lloyd's. Those companies are also the ones that are certifying cargo ships, cruise ships. They're used to dealing with clients that, if it's $1 million or $2 million, that's a rounding error. That's one tank of gas on some of these boats. When it comes to something as low volume as a 2-passenger submersible, plus or minus $1 million, that's real money to me.
Right.
I have the American Bureau. I got the American Bureau of Shipping rule book before I even started building my first submarine.
Yeah, you talked about getting into it around nine, reading a book, and then start building around 14, 15 years old.
I was something like 13, 14 when I got their rule book. And
this guy, when it was starting building submarines when he was 13 and 14 years old. 13 and 14 years old. I was doing nothing that ambitious at 13 or 14. What about you guys? That's impressive.
Familiar with what their rules are. My first submarine was an impossibility to be certified from the square one, even if I had had the resources to do that, because it was so small. And one of the rules is the hatch has to have 1 meter of clearance above the water line. My submarine body was only 2 feet in diameter. So that would have completely altered the design. And actually my submarine was, because it had wings that came all the way around the submarine and the hatch was in the middle, it was more seaworthy. And, I'd actually gotten in and out of that in 6-7 foot seas.
Right.
So that was, my first lesson with it. Probably there was a way to get a special exemption and show them like, hey, look, because I got the wings going all the way around and it's this stable and maybe I don't need a full 3 feet, but you're paying for somebody to make a change to a rule book that anytime that changes have been made to that rule book, it all happens maybe once or twice a decade,
right?
And it costs somebody a lot of money.
So in a Titan's position, where he was charging a little under
250K a seat.
Right.
Yeah.
Could you have thought he would be able to afford to get?
No, I saw something else where another expert chimed in that the real ticket price for what he was trying to do could have easily been $500,000 a seat. The amount of research and development that would need to be done, not even to be certified, but to be safe. The thing is, I don't think what I'm seeing now, I honestly believe that the more information comes out, we're going to see that he did a shockingly small amount of testing, or model testing, or engineering, it sounds like he spent more money suing his engineers to shut up than he did actually paying engineers to do testing. That's what I'm saying.
So
that right there, that will tell you his priorities. Like, don't get in my way. I just want to do this thing. I'm not going to listen to anyone else. Boy, does that speak of an arrogance and a real risk-taking and a drive. Like, anybody who opposes me, it's not that danger is my enemy. Anybody who wants to stop me is my enemy. Wow. Totally sounds like a really, wow. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but boy, not a flattering portrait there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a lot of hush money.
Yeah. He thought he knew better than everybody else.
What was your interaction with him once you sent those emails?
Or
he didn't respond back.
He responded. He didn't respond. Well, when the first email I sent him,
right,
we were staying in the same house in the Bahamas.
Really? Okay.
And there was also, we're part of a larger operation with close to 100 people there because of that. And we didn't have a lot of time to just sit down and have a private one-on-one chat, but we did discuss it briefly. And he did make changes.
Sorry, guys, the battery died, but we'll get back to the questions. And plus, this boat is leaving real quick, so making sure there's no more accidents happening. So far, if you are enjoying this interview, I would remind you to hit that like button and subscribe, because I am going on this ship, not today, tomorrow or Thursday we're going. So you'll see this video first, and then there'll be another video where I will upload.
Yeah, kudos to this guy Ace for finding this guy and seeking him out. Super interesting interview.
You heard these noises when you went down with him. You waited a day. You wrote out an email to Stockton Rush, and I want to read some of what you wrote in this email once you were back on land. Okay. You said, "What we heard, in my opinion, sounded like a flaw, a defect in one area being acted on by the tremendous pressures and being crushed, damaged. From the intensity of the sounds, the fact that they never totally stopped at depth, and the fact that there were sounds at about 300 feet that indicated a relaxing of stored energy would indicate that there is an area of the hull that is breaking down, getting spongy." Can you explain just what you mean by getting spongy and also what Stockton Rush's response was to that email?
Well, so I mean, we were actually staying in the same house in Marsh Harbor in the Bahamas during this whole trip, and I took a lot of time to kind of digest the whole experience and sent him an email specifically because I didn't want there to be any kind of like heated exchange between us. I mean, he's not the kind of character that would take criticism very well.
The captain of the Titans' reaction to your email, you guys were in the same building during the time in the Caribbean off of Bahamas?
So I mean, ultimately he pushed back his diving operation 1 year, and
Well, did he do that because it was 2020 or?
This was 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, like when I went with him, I think it was still the spring in the sun. The diving would have been in the summer.
Okay.
But even after hearing all that noise, he seemed pretty sure of himself that he wanted to dive that year.
Wow. 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 Smart to do it in an email, no? Like I didn't want any big scene, so I just decided to put it in the email. Smart.
And I remember a heated verbal exchange that he wasn't ready to do that. And there was more emails back and forth between us where I tried to impress upon him that, to fly a certain type of aircraft, somebody needs a certain number of hours and a certain level of experience. To have a skydiving license of a certain, you need this to have to your different scuba certifications. You need a certain number, certain hours, certain depths, hit certain benchmarks. There is no metric in the world that
So he'd been to like the best and brightest schools. He'd been to Princeton, Stockton, Rush. He didn't need to go through any of those little puny steps to get where he wanted, like getting a diving certificate, et cetera, et cetera. Any of the things that, excuse me, Carl Stanley is describing here.
Could use to make it sound reasonable that he had hit certain benchmarks to be ready to take that operation with that many moving parts to the middle of the North Atlantic.
Why did you feel like you needed to say something though?
I mean, if nothing, I didn't really think the pressure hull was going to fail and implode like that, but I mean, ultimately I thought he was, going to make a fool of himself and disappoint a lot of people. And, he was making promises he couldn't keep. That was clear. And even the last season, I mean, he was almost proud of the fact that he went out there and did less than half the number of dives that he had promised people he was going to do, because it showed that he was trying and willing to innovate. It's like you got a bunch of disappointed people,
and putting people's lives in jeopardy.
Yeah,
you're at it.
Yeah,
there's a point. Innovate, but don't bring people with you while you innovate until you can certify the safety, right?
On one hand, he was trying to say, this is safe, that I'm not risking safety. But on the other hand, the waiver that he was having you sign, the wording couldn't have been any harsher. And he also, for all his not doing enough testing and planning and thinking ahead, he sure seems to have thought ahead about his waiver. It very specifically says that any disputes go to the Bahamas, which would be probably the easiest for his descendants or, company members that.
Oh, that's interesting. That makes me think of Anna Nicole Smith. Anytime anyone mentions the Bahamas, because she had her baby there, I always thought she was trying to avoid legal action around being a mom, having her baby taken away from her. So will this be played out? Will that waiver stick? That's what I would love to hear from a lawyer. Are there going to be lawsuits in America? I can picture it. I mean, it just seems like it's beyond, like I said before, beyond a normal kind of beyond the normal kind of things you see in civil suits. It's so extremely negligent, dangerous, and that waiver doesn't seem to be adequate. I wouldn't think.
Still survive to deal with any kind of lawsuits there. And he also had the company split up into different divisions. One was a nonprofit in multiple different countries. So, I mean, it looks like he went above and beyond when it came to covering his own ass in the event that he died. But he didn't go above and beyond for his customer safety.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
All right. That's I think that's about what I can do for today. Oh, I think I'm fading out here. This is very intense and very sad. All of it. I don't know. Yeah, I think what have we done? Yeah, almost 2 hours. Yeah, I think that's pretty. Maybe we can pick it up some other time. But I'd be interested to hear when and if there's an inquest in this, when that comes out, when the report comes out about all of this and what kind of safety precautions were done and taken, and what was the mindset of the people on the boat and work for the company, and what people who work for the company saw, because they're all being very quiet. But this guy's spilling the beans. Yeah. I mean, according to James Cameron, they should have just, if they had gone to the last spot of communication, they would have found them right away. And did they find them right away? That's what's so odd, is this rescue. Anyway, guys, I'll see you back here again sometime soon. Have a great night. Have a great 4th of July. Happy birthday, America. And I'll see you back here next time. Good night, everybody.